great too. That was a good catch.
Yes.
I've heard her speak before. She's cool.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Hi, Yvonne.
Hello.
It was kind of a little reunion. It's kind of fun to see faces that I know that we haven't seen in the mix in person in so long.
Okay, so attendees are filing in. When the screensaver is taken down, you will all be visible as a panel. So it'll be a gallery view. And I will be hopping off and hopping in on the attendee side.
Awesome. Thank you, Laura.
No,
And thank you,
thank
everybody
you.
that's starting to join us. We'll be starting shortly. We're just waiting for more people to check in. And we're so excited about having everybody here today. So
Thank you, Susan.
we'll give it one more minute. Okay, people keep coming in. Yay. Finishing lunch. Perfect. Okay, so it's 1 o'clock. We're ready to start. We have a full agenda today, so we're going to get going. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session on joining a board, where our panel of experts will share with us their thoughts and expertise on the importance of joining a board, and how being in a board can boost your professional development while adding value to your community, creating positive impact for those you care. Before we start this session, I would like to invite everyone to participate through the Q&A function of Zoom. You can also use the chat room if needed. We will have time towards the end of the session to go through each of your questions, but please participate throughout. Also, please be sure to follow us and share your pictures and videos on our different social media platforms and tag us using Alpha Boston. And finally, please note that this session will be recorded and will be available in our landing page for further, if anybody wants to see it again, this or any other session that we've had throughout the day. And now let me introduce our panel of experts, all of them outstanding Latinas who have created great impact across the state of Massachusetts and in some cases beyond. Amanda Fernandez is the CEO and co-founder of Latinos for Education, the first Latino-founded and led national organization solely dedicated to creating leadership pathways for emerging Latino leaders in education and diversifying education nonprofit boards. Amanda began working on issues of educational opportunity and representation, serving as the Vice President of Latino External Engagement at Teach for America and a director at the Bridgespan Group, supporting clients, own organization, and talent development. Amanda's career spans over 25 years working in the fields of recruiting, diversity, organization development, change management, strategic planning, and Latino community engagement. Thank you, Amanda, for being here with us today.
Yeah.
Yvonne Garcia is the Chief of Staff to State Street CEOs and Chairwoman of the Greater Boston Chambers Women's Network. Prior to State Street, Yvonne served as Director in Marketing and Distribution Strategy for Liberty Mutual and as Vice President for Bank of America's China Construction Bank Strategic Assistance Program. In that role, Yvonne and her team created and implemented over 5 new wealth management centers throughout China, which resulted in over 80 centers currently throughout the country. Yvonne is a fully certified Six Sigma Black Belt and applies that discipline, rigor, and process to every project on which she deploys. Thank you, Yvonne, for being with us today.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Feliz Barajas, a social entrepreneur, founder and chief executive officer of Conexión, created to develop a pipeline of Hispanic Latino leaders, equipping corporations, nonprofits, and government to effectively address the implications of the nation's changing demographics. Her career has included serving as Deputy Assistant Secretary in the Clinton administration, U.S. Department of Education. Prior to her time in Washington, she was Assistant Dean at Harvard's Kennedy School of Government. Thank you, Phyllis, for being with us today.
Delighted to be here.
And Migdalia Gomez is the Community Engagement Manager at Harvard University Employees Credit Union. Migdalia Gomez brings financial education and community partnerships to Harvard University and its teaching hospitals. Migdalia served on national and statewide committees, including FAFSA Day, Massachusetts, Committee to Enhance Ethnic Diversity, and National College Goals Sunday. She presents at national, states, and regional conferences and served as a City of Boston IRS VITA preparer. Thank you, Migdalia, for being with us today. And I would like to start this conversation by hearing each of your stories and what drove you to serve on a board, and if it has impacted in any way to your professional career. And I would like to start with Amanda, if you can share your story.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. Buenas tardes. I hope everyone's doing well. I've heard that things have been going great so far with the conference, and thank you for having me here today. So I consider myself a kind of a late bloomer in this world of boards and sort of understanding how to navigate them. So I've been in leadership roles for several years, but board work has not been on the radar for me all that long. I'm someone who understands and who's learned to navigate different systems, in particular systems that exist for certain people to succeed and others not to. And so I think I learned early on, both in my corporate life, prior to going into the nonprofit sector, opened my eyes and learned how to navigate and learn that networks and networking is super important. And I know, Phyllis, that's music to your ears. When I switched to the education sector, I had the opportunity to work at a national level. And I think that my cultural background has also been really helpful in this idea of wanting to build relationships, getting to know people, feeling comfortable reaching out to people that I don't know to get advice and mentorship. When I was starting Latinos for Education, I did that with anyone and everywhere who would talk to me and who would listen to me. And, you know, Yvonne was one of those people to help sort of achieve my dream of launching this organization. So I think that story and those experiences helped to position me and make me visible, in particular in this Massachusetts landscape, to be able to join a board. I'm on two boards. One is the Massachusetts Board of Elementary and Secondary Education. It's an appointed position, so the governor appointed me to that role. And I'm also the vice chair of the board on Roxbury Community College board. And both of those experiences have been super helpful to helping me get access to funders for my organization. They have helped me identify other partners to work with and to partner with, and have given me a voice and credibility. And so that is what the opportunity has been, as well as to represent the issues and voice of Latinos in the state of Massachusetts. So all of that has been really helpful to my career.
Thank you. You bring so many points, and we're definitely going to start digging in many of them throughout the questions. Phyllis, can you share your story?
Sure. So like many of us here, I started out my career. I grew up in the Midwest in Omaha, and I was a school teacher, and then I got politicized, and I've never looked back. So I started out more in community activism and advocacy. I started the first bilingual program in the Omaha Public Schools. I was young and naive and didn't realize how quickly it got politicized. They were juxtaposing the bilingual program budget against the football, I'm serious, against the football equipment at South High School. And I was appalled. I was so stupid looking back that they would do that to talk about, well, we have to get a bus for all those bilingual kids. And they were mostly Mexican, a few Cubans here and there. And I was enraged. And also what I didn't realize at the time, my family, my dad was a well-known, one of the Mexican leaders, Mexican immigrant in Omaha. And when I look back now, they were leveraging my brand as there were only 5 Mexican teachers in the whole school system. And I was one of them, and my dad's brand, Barajas. So again, I was being used. So looking back, I thought, oh my God. So the idea of it being an advocate, speaking up for people who can't speak for themselves, and being demonized and all of this kind of enraged me, and that stayed with me all these years. So when I ended up here in Boston some decades later, I brought that community activism to the work that I was doing. I had a day job. I worked for the state. I was a social worker. I did training and development. Then I ended up working at Harvard. But my first board role here in Massachusetts was Alianza Hispana, which was larger at the time. And they recruited me to be on their board, and I ended up serving as board chair. But again, it was a great way for me, coming from outside of Massachusetts, to get acclimated to the community here. I was politically involved. I was on the state Democratic Party. I was a delegate to the state, when we vote for people to go, oh my God, I'm blanking. Anyway, so I had gotten involved politically, which then led to working with La Alianza Hispana. And then from there, I left and came back, and then got involved in more boards coming back. To me, board service is a really, really great way to give back to the community, to be an advocate. It was another way to be an advocate, and I saw the value in doing that. I've served on boards that were more ethnic and embedded in the community, like La Alianza, and I've been on boards more recently that are what I consider more mainstream boards. However, the things that they do affect our community. So I'm on the Boys and Girls Club board. I'm on the United Way board, Merrimack Valley. And those are 2 boards that do a lot with our community and are seeing a steady increase in our families, our kids. And at the same time, on one of the boards, I'm only one of 2 Latinos on the entire board. And on the other board, I was the 3rd Latino on that board. And now we're up to 9 out of 137 trustees. So again, we're making inroads. But for me, it's an alignment between my commitment to the community. I believe in our community. I believe in our people. I believe what they can bring to the table, regardless of where they are socioeconomically. And so I see my role on the board as an opportunity to speak on behalf of those who can't speak for themselves. And I'm also willing to speak up at times, probably more than some people would like. One on a different board, not those 2 boards, but on another board on which I serve that I won't name, somebody called me out on the diversity committee, called me out in the meeting and called me a contrarian. And I looked around the room and I said, let me see, there's 10 of us. I'm the only Latina, and on the board, I'm the only Latina. So I guess I'm doing my job. I'm the contrarian. So sometimes you just have to be willing to wear it and wear it proudly, and I do. So there. Be careful what you wish for. You want a Latina? You got one. So,
I love what you're saying in your story. Thank you for sharing. And I think we're starting to see some common threads, but I'll let Migdalia follow up with her story.
Thank you. And I wanted to start saying it is such an honor to be on this panel with everyone else that here, all these great panelists that I'm taking notes myself and learning from all of you. What led me to be involved in different boards was truly, it came from mentorship opportunity. I was given an opportunity at my first job to be a part of an association, and within the association, they had their board. And I then saw that and thought there's a need for me to be there, because I looked around and I realized that those that were there didn't look like me, and they didn't not only was I the only Latina, I was also right out of college, so I was fairly young, and I was the only Latina. I was fairly young, and there weren't that many women as well. So I'm one of those, as you know, all of us here, we sort of check off many different boxes. So having that opportunity, I felt I've been very blessed to be where I am. I'm Dominican. My parents come from Campos, Washington Heights, Bushwick. So for me to be where I am, it's only right for me to give that back to the community. And in order for me to actually make a difference, I need my voice heard. And in order for my voice to be heard, there's only so much I can do up one level. Like I can only speak so much to my superiors, but really to be on a board or to be involved in different national associations, to be able to participate in regional ones, that allows me to be involved where the decisions are being made, deciding where are the funds going to go? Are they thinking of this population? Well, can we do more for that population? The fact that, Phyllis, that you had to over basketball, like that to me is insane. But had you not been there, that voice would not have been heard. So I think that's what drove me to be a part and always looking for opportunities. Because if I'm not there, who was going to be speaking for our people? And that's what really drives me.
Thank you. Thank you. Yvonne, your story.
Oh my goodness. It all started when I was one. But in all seriousness, first of all, I'd like to say, an honor to share the screen with Amanda, Phyllis, and Migdalia. Migdalia, my parents also from El Campo in DR, so love it. And I think it's certainly shaped who I am. So those roots, and Amanda and Phyllis, just always very inspirational and true role models in our community. So it's an honor to spend time with my fellow panelists and with you, our moderator, Diana. I'll say that at a very young age, all joking aside, it really did start. I always say a lot of it starts at home, and my parents really instilled in me the sense of philanthropy, and their part of philanthropy was helping our cousins and aunts and uncles that would come from the Dominican Republic that were looking to start a life in the States. They came, over 60 years ago to the United States. And since then, there are countless and countless family members that were able to educate themselves in the United States or form a career because of the help that my parents provided, whether it was letting them live with us. Till today, I never remember living in my home with only my nuclear family. We always had somebody staying with us. And I think that probably holds true for a lot of Latinos and Latinas. But in a way that always gave me a sense of the need to give back and the importance of giving back to help others move forward. And I've carried that throughout my entire career. It's interesting, my first board experience was with Alpha almost 20 years ago, out of school. And my responsibility was to put the name tags together for Alpha Boston events. And I was very proud of what I was doing. I did it with pride because I knew that although small, my contribution was part of the success of the events. And I just learned the importance of being part of a team that really believed in the power of elevating the Latino voice, in this case in corporate America, and since then Alpha has expanded to do so much more. But I knew that I was part of something special. I knew I was part of something important. I also, obviously went on through the ranks and eventually took on bigger roles within Alpha. But one thing that it always fulfilled, my board duty, was this sense of just this, it kind of filled this vacancy that I would have in my day jobs. So, and I learned to also leverage and hone in on skills that perhaps I didn't have an opportunity to do so in my day job. And I learned to be able to practice those in a safe space or in a risk-free space. So the ability to just give back and watch firsthand how the impact that these organizations have on the lives of Latino children and professionals, is so fulfilling and important, and now more than ever, right? So that's really my story. My entire board career I'm on several other boards, but I think the biggest career I've had has been on an Alpha board, almost 20 years ago. So it's been probably the greatest asset, and the biggest thing that's contributed to my professional career as well.
Thank you, Yvonne. And I think I would like to stay with you We've heard from, you know, the different stories where some started very young age, some started, you know, later in their career. I know that I got introduced into boards 2 years ago. So there are different beliefs on when to start on a board, if start on a board, or people that didn't even know that that was a thing. But I feel like many people think, or there's a belief out there that I've heard, that serving on a board is something that you do when you reach more senior levels in your career, because that's sort of expected in some way or thought. So in your case, Yvonne, starting you know, at such a young age with Alpha, coming out of college, what are your thoughts and experience for others and for our audience to say, when's the right time? Is there a right time to join a board? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, you know, I started at a young age. I was in my 20s. And I will say that it was a great time to join for a few reasons. I grew as a professional. I was able to practice skills that, you know, as a junior employee in the various companies that I was part of, I just was not given that opportunity, whether it was fundraising, marketing, public speaking. These were all skills that I was able to practice at a very young age in a nonprofit environment. I also built a very strong network. So individuals today that I at times even do business with are, you know, people in the Commonwealth and in the country that I met 20 years ago. So there's a very strong foundation there, and a very rich network, and not only in the finance industry, which is really great. And I will say that if you learn throughout your career how to take what you learn in a board setting and to take those leadership skills and transfer them to your day job, you will grow probably much faster than a peer that is not there, that is not part of a board. Just because the leadership at your organization will start seeing you in a different light. They'll start seeing you as a leader, not only inside your company, but in the community. And especially in this environment, that continues to be critically important. You want your employees to be well-rounded and to be seen as leaders in and outside of the company. And lastly, you know, as I took on leadership roles without the board, I always heard, I'm too busy, I don't have time. And I'll tell you, I went to labor with my first in a board meeting. So I will say that, you know, it was hard to tell me that they were too busy, because I'm like, okay, I'm literally raising 2 babies while leading. And I had an assignment in China, and I was leading Alpha Boston from Beijing. So telling me that they were too busy was tough. But I will say that, that it has to be in the right time of your life, right? There are certain times in your life that it may not be the right fit. I always saw it as an investment in my career, and in my personal and professional journey. So I always made the time for it, and I prioritized. I also brought people in my company inside the organization so that they too could benefit from it. And more importantly, they could champion my efforts within the board. So I would say, see it as an investment in your career. It was the best decision I made in my early 20s.
I love that about investing in our careers. I don't think we have that mentality. And I would like to move to Amanda. And you talked about, you know, being a late bloomer in the board work. However, it's been extremely important to you in learning how to navigate and how to network. And with so many boards out there, because I feel like once you get into this or start trying to like see which one is a good fit, there's so many options out there. Do you have any recommendations on how to go about either, is it searching for a board, or how does one, you know, in their career and not knowing anything about it, like how do you get on a board?
Thanks for your question. And I think there are different ways. Number one is identify what you care about.
Yeah.
And that has to be at the core of, in particular, nonprofit board service, because that is giving of your time, and you are expected to play pretty particular roles on a nonprofit board. And so because it is an extension of your time, I highly encourage folks to first do some soul searching on what really matters to you. What do you respond to in the news? what have been your life experiences that make you think or feel passionate about certain topics, whether it's healthcare, whether it's youth, whether it's K through 12 education. We at Latinos for Education have a program called the Latino Board Fellowship. We specifically designed that program because we knew that there were many Latino professionals who have had very different and challenging educational experiences that have stayed with them, but have also propelled them to the success that they've had as professionals. Many of those folks come from Alpha that join our program. So our program was designed to actually help folks who are interested in education be matched to an education nonprofit board that will best sort of meet what they care about and what they can give to. So we have a program, and we have a program in Greater Boston. We've run 4 cohorts already. And so we have over 40 Latino professionals serving on education nonprofit boards right now. So there are programs like ours. So www.latinosforeducation.org, you can find out more about our board fellowship. It's been highly successful because we've been able to tap into what makes the presence and voice of Latinos unique to being on the board, how to leverage your Latinidad, how to challenge the status quo, and how to show up also with the right technical skills for understanding and knowing how to do the technical piece of operating on a board. So those are pieces that, whether you are interested in education, want to look at a program like ours or look elsewhere, it's about first identifying those things that you really care about. There are other programs. If you want to join commissions, the state is always looking for people to join their boards. Amplify Latinx, as I'm sure many of you know, help people with that. And then people like us, like Yvonne, like me, like Phyllis, we're getting solicited all the time. And so we, and I'll say, as an elder in this space, I'll speak for myself, sort of feeling like, look, I can help. And there are many mentors like us who would be willing to have a conversation to talk through what might be opportunities and connections we can make for you. It's something that I personally feel very responsible for. It's my duty, and I gladly step up to help others to be successful, to have a voice, in particular in education, because we need it so badly. We need the voice of Latinos on behalf of Latino children. We are really in a precarious situation right now as a community. So it's our responsibility to step up in whatever capacity that is. So I will have a lot more to say about it, but let me make sure I leave room for others.
No, thank you. And I don't know if Giselle or Laura were able to jot that down, her the URL, so that we can post it on the chat so that people can go and check it out. Thank you, Amanda. I think it's very important, the work that you're doing. And Phyllis, with everything that's happening this year, and many of you mentioned it, right? There's not a lot of Latinos in boards. And that has been something that has been highlighted for many, many years, that gap and that opportunity. But with everything that's been happening this year, between COVID and Black Lives Matter movement, you know, there has been a heightened awareness, or at least I've seen a heightened awareness on that disparity on Latinos on boards. And now people are becoming more conscious and are actively looking to try to compensate or try to, you know, be a little bit more equitable on that matter. So what have you seen on your end, and what are your recommendations on how our audience should take this opportunity right now to grow their experience with everything that all of you shared with us, and create a positive impact for Latinos in our community?
Well, to piggyback on start with something that Amanda said that I think is important is, first of all, knowing what you really care about. That's really important, because whatever you're going to do with your time outside of your day job, whatever time you give that. You've got to be in a position to dedicate the time, whatever it is. Secondly, I would agree there has been a huge increase even before the pandemic. I would say in the last 12 to 24 months, Conexión has started out here in Boston, and now we, for a number of reasons, we're in the states as far away as Seattle, Washington, California, and Puerto Rico. So there is clearly a heightened interest in the Latino demographic, Latino professionals, and as volunteers. So one of the things that I've been telling people right now, even before you get to the board level, is look at where is their need. So we're getting requests for volunteers. So for example, in the spring, there was a huge demand for help with food distribution. And I got calls from several nonprofits seeking bilingual volunteers to help distribute food. And that was from a couple of nonprofit agencies, one of them Maverick Landing. And she said, this is what we do all the time, but we need it to do it right now because that's the need. But it's a way, if you start volunteering for organizations, it's also a way for you to kind of figure out, is this an organization that's doing something that I care about, that I can invest my time in? You get to know them, they get to know you. So it's just taking a baby step. And apropos what everybody else has said, we all feel very strongly that we have to be there to really help those who are not in a position to help themselves as easily. So volunteering is a good way to get to know one another. I think that talking to people, I would agree to what Amanda and Yvonne have both said, alluded to, is that we're all connectors. I said we called it Conexión for a reason, because we know connections matter. And we are connectors, and certainly I have a whole little to-do list right now that of people that want to make some connections and really want to be of help. And then the third thing I would say is for people like myself, and I'm sure Yvonne and Amanda and Migdalia probably do it too, of the boards that I'm on, I always say I may be the first, but I won't be the last. So the Boys and Girls Club, for example, I was the third one. Now we're up to 9 or 10 over the last several years of bringing people in. And it's not just the usual suspects, by the way. I always have to chuckle when people find, because they can find me, they can find Yvonne, Amanda and what have you. And then you'll see the list of who they have on their list. And I said, with all due respect, I know every one of these people. I said, I'll be happy to ask them, but I'm not so sure they're going to say yes because I know what their plate looks like. But I'll ask just in case. But I really think it's incumbent on us. There's a lot of other folks, many of you who are listening, who we know are extremely talented, competent, are really, really excellent professionals that would be really great assets. So I'm very proud of the fact that the people we brought into Boys and Girls Club, to use that example, are people that you might know, you might not know. But again, it's a way for them, the Boys and Girls Club, to have some real value. It's really outstanding professionals. They serve on committees. They give financially. They give their time. They care about. They speak on behalf of. They're seeing a growing number of Latino kids in the Boston clubs. So we're all of us, all 9 of us, are now able to really speak on behalf of our Latino kids and their families in Chelsea and Charlestown. And even in South Boston, it's almost 30% Latino kids now in the South Boston Club. So I think looking at those opportunities is ways that we can help you get more involved. And believe me, if you if you ask me for help, there's a quid pro quo. And I always say to people, if I'm going to nominate you to a board, you sure as heck better be ready to show up, be prepared, and deliver. Because I'm using my brand to sell you to an organization, because I think we've got too many folks that are talented that aren't getting the visibility. So I'm willing to do it, and then I expect you to step up and do some heavy lifting as well, and then bring others behind you as well.
Yeah, so important of having bringing in the commitment. It's not only about the passion, but also the commitment and giving the time. And on that matter, I would like to hear from Migdalia. One of the barriers, and somebody mentioned it before, for professionals to join a board is how to balance that time commitment, between work and all other competing priorities. And it's always like, yes, I would like to, however, how much time, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to have that. And we keep pushing it aside, despite all the great benefits that all of you have shared. So do you have any thoughts from your end on how do you manage the time, and what are some recommendations?
Yeah. So I think for me, when I hear that, and not trying to be a little controversial or anything, but I think of that as an excuse. I think we're saying there's not enough time, and I think of that as an excuse. So I think we need to take a moment and realize, is it the time? Is it the challenge? Like, what does that actually mean? It's so easy to say, oh, I don't have time. Oh, I'm too busy. But really, what is it? Is it the fact that you have other things that you maybe don't feel comfortable saying no to? Is it the fact that maybe you're afraid of the challenge? So I first want to sort of question that notion of, is it the time? What is truly the reason that's you're preventing yourself from moving forward? One saying that I hear often is, el que tiene sed busca la agua. So whoever's thirsty looks for the water. We get done what we want to get done. So if I wake up today and I say, I want to do X, I will get it done. So we can prioritize, we can find the time, but first we have to really understand, and it's been said multiple times, what are we passionate about? What are we trying to accomplish? And if that is really what our goal is, then we have to essentially do an audit of our time and what am I spending my time on? If I'm saying that education is important to me and helping my fellow Latinos and others advance, but I am doing zero towards that, I'm not spending my time on my priority. And that actually leads to something else, which is more the sort of this internal conflict of who you want to be and who you're actually being. And it's not to be judgmental with yourself, but it's to just have those hard conversations of what am I trying to accomplish? And is it that I don't have the time, or is it that I'm scared? And it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be challenged. And that's not a bad thing. That's where we grow. When we have those opportunities for us to be put in situations that we're not typically in. But, you know, for those that say that I don't have the time, I really do ask you, look deeper than that. If you do an audit, where are you spending your time? Find things that maybe you're not, you know, maybe instead of spending 3 hours cleaning every week, okay, spend a little bit less. Instead of doing 3 hours watching TV, maybe you do a little bit less. Find things that aren't helping you fulfill whatever purpose you have in life, and for whatever goals you have. If you're doing something that's not fulfilling that, then do less of that. And it doesn't mean that you have to go from 0 to 100 within a day or a week, you know, little steps here and there. I think many times when we think of goals, they become overwhelming because we think of the last thing. We're like, okay, I want to do this. But yes, you may want to join a board, but have you volunteered for a committee? Can you take the baby steps? Have you looked at your day schedule and said, you know what? Instead of watching this TV show, instead of listening to this music for 30 minutes, whatever it may be, I'm going to do X instead. I'm going to attend, you know, join the Today session. I'm going to go to a different conference. I'm going to find different ways to participate. And then if you also are in a situation that you realize I am feeling overwhelmed with everything else that I have, I think that in itself is an opportunity to look and think, okay, can you ask for help? I know, especially as Latinas, we take on a lot. We take on a lot, whether that is the family, whether that's taking care of the younger ones, our elders, our family, our friends. We take on a lot, and it's okay to ask for help. So if there are situations, and especially if you're in a household that maybe someone else can help with a little bit, something else, maybe that will help you free up the time. And having those conversations and being honest, like, I want to advance myself professionally. I want to give back to my community. And in order for me to do so, I need to do X. So can you help me by doing Y? And it doesn't have to be big ask. And most people are willing to help, especially when they realize that it's for a greater cause.
Thank you. Thank you. All great points. And we have a question from the audience, so I'm going to pop that one in. And anybody can jump in and answer. What activities do you engage in as a board member to be valued as a contributor? And what are the expectations and what makes the role challenging?
I'll go. I'm on a number of boards, and it really depends on the board. So in a couple of the boards on which I serve, they're really and these are big boards. One's 45 people, one's 75 people, and so they're focused, and they don't have much diversity. And so they launched, both of them at the same time, launched diversity committees. So they asked me if I would be on the diversity committee. So I'm on the diversity committee for those organizations. In other ones, like Boys and Girls Club, they really were looking at the club level. So I was able to bring in some of our, not me, but some of our other people that we brought in, Diana Ubinez and Alejandra Peña. They run a program that we call Conexión Teen Talks. And we go to the clubs. They bring people from our Conexión network, people like Amanda and others, who speak to the kids and talk about career. And they're always Latinos and so forth. So that's a very different type of an ask from being on a diversity committee. So, you know, it just varies from board to board where I might be able to add value. And again, it's not just me adding value, but in the case of bringing in Alejandra and Diana and the rest of our Conexión network to be speakers is a very different type of an activity. So it really depends on the board that you're involved with, but be prepared to do something. I mean, I really do see it's incumbent on us to bring others along and expose. And by the way, I think it's a two-way street. I think we're very fortunate. I'm very happy to see these organizations feeling somewhat uncomfortable that they do lack the diversity and they do lack Latinos, and kudos to them for saying, can you help us out? So, being ready to help out and contribute in whatever way might be most useful depending on the board.
Awesome, thank you. Yvonne, you mentioned you've been on a board, for many, many, many years. So I'm sure you've seen a big evolution on how do people experience boards? How do they contribute to boards? And I just would love to hear your thoughts and anybody else's thoughts on, with COVID changing the dynamics of how we interact with each other, how we support each other, because all of you have talked about, the contributions, the impact, the support, and a lot of that was in many cases in person, right? But now everybody's had to shift to being creative in other ways. So would love your thoughts, Yvonne, with, everything that you've seen throughout all of these years, how you've seen that impact change and the work that people do on boards change.
I mean, I will say it's been very difficult, particularly for Latinos. We thrive off just seeing each other and el calor, and for us it was like the Alpha Convention, the first year that we don't get to get together in Vegas or wherever it will be, and that was really difficult because that was kind of the tangible product was networking and getting together and sharing laughter. So it's I think particularly difficult for a demographic that is known to be the ultimate networkers and truly consider themselves family. But I will say that as a result, of the pandemic, I've seen people be more intentional. And what I mean by that is, we have thousands and hundreds of virtual Zoom calls and WebExes that we're invited to participate. And I do feel that people tend to be more strategic now and more intentional in terms of where am I going to lend my time? What should I be doing today? How can I help, more importantly, position this board or this organization for the future, what the future workforce may be like, what the future framework will be in order to have employees and board members thrive. So I think there's a lot of people just trying to innovate and become relevant to what the future workforce may be, given how this pandemic has and will change the lives of how we operate and function on a day-to-day.
Awesome, thank you. And we have another question from our audience, and I would love to hear from Phyllis or from Amanda. What is the expected weekly, monthly time commitment for serving on a board? Any thoughts?
I'll take that. And the answer is it varies. And that is a question you have to ask when in conversation with a potential organization whose board you may want to join. It's a really important question. So it really just does depend on the board, how high functioning it is. That's something to also be prepared to ask questions that will help you to better understand how they function, which also says something about the time commitment and sort of what the expectations are. I've been on, and then I think some of it has to do with how involved you want to get, because you can get very involved with the board and spend a lot of your time. In general, boards meet either monthly, bi-monthly, or quarterly as a full board. And then boards will have various committees that usually fall within a particular structure around governance, finance, etc. And so there would be time commitments that would be part of committee work. And I'm on a committee on every board that I've ever been on. So I'd say, even for myself, the State Board of Education has a monthly meeting that's 4 hours long. I usually get what used to be a binder, now it's a PDF of about 200 pages of things to read in advance. So it depends also sort of on the complexity of what the work is, of what that board does that you're on. So I know it's not a straight answer, but there isn't one. It does vary quite a bit from board to board.
Yeah, and I would just say you just have to ask the questions. I think it's really important to piggyback on what Amanda said, because sometimes it might be they'll have like a big event in the year. So maybe you're not going to have the time to do monthly meetings. I'm on committees, I agree, I'm on committees on all the boards on which I serve. And then there are some of these organizations have these big events that are like the house party or the annual meeting that they make into a big gala. Maybe you volunteer for just those things, and that's a big contribution. It could be something you could do from home that you don't have to, I know we're virtual now, but those are things you might be able to give your time in a more focused way rather than monthly if that doesn't work for your schedule. So it's always worth exploring what are the options available to you. And again, depending on your time frame, what like Yvonne was saying, when the kids were younger, that means that you may have to be home more or something like that. I'm alone now. My kids are all grown. So I have more time to donate. So that asking those questions, also talk to other people around the board. What is their reality, and are there suggestions they might have about ways to contribute that fit within your schedule and your lifestyle?
Thank you. And we've talked a lot about the benefits of being on a board, to ourselves, to our career, to the impact to our communities and the people that we serve. However, I would love to hear from all of you, starting with me, Dalia, on, what are the types of challenges that one can expect on a board? Because there's also that side of it, right? Like with any work that we do, there's the things that we enjoy, and then there's the other side that we need to overcome. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would say for myself, one of the challenges that I have experienced was and it was more internal, which then led to other pieces, was this feeling of, do I belong in this board? Like this sort of self-doubt of, are my contributions going to be sufficient? And once I worked my way through that, I realized that once I understood the value that I brought to being on that board, then I had to stick to it, and I had to speak up when sometimes it wasn't the popular opinion. So I had to be comfortable saying, you know what, I disagree. And even if everyone else agreed, I had to be the one that said, this is why I disagree. And even though internally I was wondering, I wonder if they don't believe what I'm saying because X, Y, and Z, and I'm going through my head of all these possibilities. The challenge that I experienced was accepting the fact that I do belong there because I had a voice. And then the next challenge was being okay with others not agreeing with you, and realizing that it's a good thing if people don't agree with you, because that shows that you're showing a different opinion, like you're bringing in a different perspective. But those were some of the challenges that I have experienced.
Anyone else? Okay.
Sure, I can.
Sure.
Well, I can offer a couple of things. So I went into board service without any training, and I think it's part of the reason why we offer training through Latinos for Education, because very basic things like, how does a board meeting actually run? Like all of a sudden everyone's saying, everyone in favor say aye, and you're kind of like, wait, what? What am I? Oh, okay, I'm supposed to say aye. I mean, so no one even, you can join boards and basic operations of a board you may have never been exposed to. So that's why I highly recommend that you do some preparation. There, besides our program, there are others that provide preparation if you've never been on a board. The other thing is racism is alive and well on boards. Let's just be candid here, that it's still very much an old boys network on a lot of the boards. And I remember too many times during breaks at the board meetings that the boys get together and chat and don't let you in. And so we're constantly breaking that ceiling, right? Of being visible, of having a voice, as Migdalia said, and even if yours is the only one, it's really hard to do, but that is a reality of what still is happening on the boards, even though we are seeing changes for the better. We're not there yet.
I agree. I would also say managing different personalities on the board, and people coming with perhaps with different agendas, and ensuring that as a group and as a body you're working towards fulfilling the mission of the organization, and that you're dealing with different personalities. You're dealing with people that perhaps have a different expectation of what that should be. So ensuring that you keep the best interest, and this is more in a leadership role of the board, ensuring that you keep the best interest of the organization. You think of your key stakeholders, what would they expect of the board, is really critical. And it can be very difficult at times. And also, depending on the experience of your board, ensuring that they understand the difference between governance and management of an organization, and really educating them on the difference there and how to navigate that. So.
And I think thank you. And I think you've all, oh, go ahead.
Oh, and I would just weigh in on this too. I mean, for all of us, I think we're frequently the only one or one of a few. So I would certainly echo what everybody else has said about, breaking through the glass ceiling. There are all kinds of biases out there. I mean, it isn't just a male-female thing. And as I said, the person that called me a contrarian is, is someone who is from another group. And I was a little taken aback by that because, now we're the new kid on the block, so to speak, in that organization. So it really, you got to do your homework. You've got to be prepared. If you're going to be coming up with an alternative point of view, you need to be able, I would say, I think McDowell, you said, you bring some information along with it, not just your opinion based on what, give examples, references, and so forth, I think is important. So because you're going to be in that position, that's hard. It's really hard. And then you leave the meeting, even if it's virtual or in person, is anybody going to talk to me after this meeting? They're all going to hate me. And you got to be okay with that. And then also to go along with they might hate me is find a few allies. I don't think I could have done any of the board work that I've done. I've had allies on every single board, and seek out those people that you feel you can form a relationship with, that are open to your different way of thinking, because that's why we're there. But it takes a little bit of courage and risk taking and find those allies, but that can be hard. And do your homework. I've given people copies of Robert's Rules of Order, because I think that's important, Amanda, to know, what the procedure is, protocol. And that makes you feel much more comfortable when you know how to run a meeting. So.
I love especially that comment, because I remember when I was in one of the boards and they started with the I and all of that, and I was like, what am I like? The protocols, yes, it does throw you a little bit off. In your opinion, and running into the last 10 minutes of our wonderful conversation, I'm going to join two of the questions from the audience into sort of one. Would love your thoughts. What are those top skills that someone should develop when considering joining a board? And when do you know you're ready? Especially because for many of us, the imposter syndrome sets in, and we want to be 100% ready before we say that we can go into a board, versus just jumping in and learning along the way. So any thoughts on that?
I think that, go ahead. I was just going to say, I think that the beauty of, the boards, and especially nonprofit boards, is that you can learn along the way. And, a good board chair will really understand, and want to understand the value that they feel you bring to the table, and put you in an appropriate position, right? So, whether it's whatever your background may be, they will usually find you a mentor on the board that will help guide you until you are performing on your own. I think attributes are being a strategic thinker, and knowing how to take people from different walks of life, different industries, different skill sets, and bringing them together towards a common mission. I think the greatest gift that I have received on a board, and I've been able to translate that into my corporate career, is what I call leadership, right? Leading without authority, influencing without authority. And what I mean by that is you know, as you know, in Alpha, all our board members are volunteers. So the ability to bring thousands and thousands of young professionals and students to want to march to the same tune, go after the, you know, contribute to the same mission and goal is really powerful when you transfer that skill set into corporate America, where now where many of us are in matrix organizations, you know, you do need certain skill sets to be able to influence people to lead towards a decision that will benefit you or your department or your function. So I would say, and then just being, you know, at the end of the day, being a good person. And you're not always going to get everyone to agree with you or even like you, and that's okay. As long as you know that you are doing the right thing and that you're behaving and executing in the best interest of the organization, and you're leading with your heart and mind, the rest does not matter. It is okay. So it kind of sounds simple. When you're in the middle of it, it's not so simple. But I will say that if you can look at yourself at night and say, you know what, I will sleep just fine tonight because I know those thousands of individuals that we are impacting by this organization, whatever nonprofit you select, you know, are going to be better off because of the hard work that you're doing, then it's a good feeling.
And I think I would agree with everything that Yvonne said there. Those are excellent points. And also not to be so hard on ourselves. I was with a friend the other day and I said to her, she was going on about something. And I said, oh, for the love of God, I said, if you had a friend that was saying what you're saying right now, what would you say to her? And sometimes I think we're so hard on ourselves. I mean, Val, you kind of touched on it earlier. And I just think, and I mean, we all are I speak for myself, I do that too. It's like, stop that, you know, celebrate yourself. So I think the idea of, at the end of the day, did I leave the world a little bit better today than it was when I woke up this morning? Did I do even the smallest thing can make a huge difference. So not to be so hard on us, to celebrate ourselves, celebrate what we're doing. Again, finding allies, finding mentors. That's what Conexión does. We have wonderful mentors. Like I said, you know, certainly I'm always available. If people want to give me a call or an email, I'm certainly happy to help and support you because I believe in what you guys are doing, each and every one of us. So thank you.
Yeah, and don't forget, you all are on this call with skills. You have skills already, so don't underestimate the skills that you already bring. You are, by and large, folks in the business world, in the private sector. You have marketing experience, you have finance experience, etc. And these are skills that boards need. So you have those skills because you've been honing them already. And so along with that, you know, idea of imposter syndrome, it's having the faith that you do have the skills that you've already been honing in order to play a role to advance the mission of an organization or help profits as well. Help improve profits.
That's important. That's important.
Depending on the board.
Yeah.
And I think I'll sort of summarize it for everyone. You're ready now. I think you're ready now. If you have the passion, if you're thinking about it, Amanda Phyllis did a great job of showing the scope of involvement. It doesn't mean that if you join the board today, you have to be the most involved. If you have that passion, if you're interested, look for the opportunities today. You know, follow up today with someone, take the next steps, and let that passion essentially drive you. If you're interested, go for it right now. Because who knows where we're going to be in a couple of months, a couple of years. So you want to make sure you get the work done now.
Thank you. Thank you all for those wonderful words of wisdom, for sharing your story, for being so insightful, sharing the good side, the not so good side. And I think it all rounds up. Thank you, Mignalia, with what you're saying. It is all about that passion, right? It's this additional thing that we can all do to really not only serve us as professionals, but also serve others and have a positive impact. Any additional 30-second final words before we move to our next session?
I just want to thank you again for your leadership and for being such a great moderator, and encourage everyone to join a board. It's a great experience.
Yeah, if not,
Thank you for the opportunity. I think this is really, really important for your career. I think you learn a lot and you meet some really great people, Latino and non-Latino. So friendships can evolve, networks can evolve, and I just feel it's worth the time and effort that you put into it. So go for it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I would just say, you know, if not us, then who? If not now, then when? We've all heard that one before, but this really is an important time for our voices to be heard, and to do that through board service is a very noble way to do that.
Yeah, and I would say my last thing is before you go to the next session, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, and write down what is one thing you're going to do that's going to bring you closer to that next step, and then do it.
Very important. Be intentional in action. Thank you. Thank you again once more for everybody for your time, for being here. We are 2 minutes away from the next session. So I invite everybody to just log out of this one and jump into the next one. It's all about how do you plan for your career success and continue to grow. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of other learnings there. Also, a reminder that this session was recorded and it'll be available with the rest of the sessions for the day in the landing page that was put earlier on today. And share any, you know, videos, pictures, anything that you experienced through today. Please share in your social media and tag us at Alpha Boston. So thank you again, everybody, for the time, and I wish you all a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.